Chapter 25. The first strike of Sentinel Prime's blade knocked Megatron back, unbalancing him. He crashed into a support pillar and barely evaded a second blow as he brought his own sword to bear and raked it in a vicious arc through the air where Sentinel Prime's head had been a nanoclick before. On his backswing he felt the blade nick Sentinel Prime's shoulder just before a stiff-armed smash to Megatron's face knocked him over backward. He leapt to his feet and circled with his opponent. "More fight in you now than there was at Altihex Casino," Megatron said. "You think you can make up for all of your precious little Autobot fools who have died protecting an idea not even you believed in?" Swords clashed, Megatron deflecting a searching thrust and Sentinel Prime in turn flicking away Megatron's riposte. "The way I seek to atone is to make a better future than the past I have allowed to happen," Sentinel Prime said. Megatron nodded and offered Sentinel Prime a mock salute. "Well said. I will have that engraved over the scrap heap where your body lands." Again they clashed together. Somewhere behind him, Megatron heard two of his retinue make a bet, not over who would win, but over how long it would take and whether Sentinel Prime would land a telling blow first. Dark Energon. No one could touch him while it circulated through his systems. He answered every stroke of Sentinel Prime's sword. When the sword blade touched him, the pain was invigorating. The Dark Energon took it and made it into strength. Yet when Megatron's blade bit into Sentinel Prime's frame, the ancient leader had only his will to rely on, and the Energon he had always used. Gradually Megatron wore him down. First a blow to his leg that scraped down from hip to knee, creating a shower of curling bits of metal. Then they grappled, and Megatron was younger, faster, and fueled by Dark Energon. He rained blows on Sentinel Prime's head, striking sparks there as well, beating the former leader of Cybertron until, with the last of his will, Sentinel Prime threw Megatron off and got to his feet. Once more he deployed his sword. "You may kill me, Megatron," Sentinel Prime said. "I sense that you have the essence of Unicron within you, and it gives you a strength that is hard to resist." "Impossible, you mean?" Megatron said. He felt strong, ready, as if he were just getting started. Sentinel Prime assumed a ready position. "But beware the cost. The universe offers nothing for free. Neither does Unicron." Megatron raised his sword in a salute. No mockery this time. It had been a worthy fight. But now the time had come to end it. Once again they clashed, the collisions of their blades striking flares from each other and Energon discharges, light and dark, arcing from their bodies to creep along the support pillars or lead away into the floor. Lights blinked on around the glowing rectangle of the doorway. Was Teletron 1 awakening to their presence? Megatron's team looked around, shifted their weapons. To them, Teletron 1 was practically a myth, and the Dark Energon had baffled their thought processes. It made them outstanding soldiers, but it did not fit them out to think subtly. They banded together, their wagers forgotten, wondering what else Cybertron might create when Megatron destroyed their former Prime. Sentinel Prime's sword pierced the point of Megatron's shoulder. Megatron threw back his head and roared, the sound of agony modulating to a darkened glee. He reached up, with the same arm that was wounded, and clamped his hand over Sentinel Prime's and over the guard and hilt of his sword. "To wound me," Megatron said, "you must get close enough that I can wound you as well." And he brought his blade over and down, severing Sentinel Prime's arm. The howl that escaped Sentinel Prime was a lament for all that he had failed to do, and all that he now knew he never would do. Megatron threw the arm away, the motion also dislodging the sword from his shoulder. He struck again, opening a rent in Sentinel Prime's other arm and again splitting the side of the doomed leader's head. Sentinel Prime staggered. Megatron swung from the side, the blow biting deep into the side of Sentinel Prime's trunk. Megatron yanked the blade free and Sentinel Prime sank to his knees. He lifted his remaining arm to ward off the next blow, and Megatron struck it off at the elbow. "Once you were a great leader," Megatron said. "But you grew weak. Just as Cybertron grew weak. I am here to make it strong again. He raised his sword higher overhead, dark energon flickering out of it to spark against the ceiling. Then he brought it down in a final stroke that cleft the armor over Sentinel Prime's torso from the base of his throat to the gleaming belt on which he wore the sigil of that noble myth Vector Prime. Sentinel Prime toppled onto his side. A tremor shook its way outward through his limbs, then the former leader was still. A dying gleam of his spark still showed, so faintly that it could barely be seen even in the dimness, in his optics. Megatron cast his blade aside. Catalican, he called out. Where is the code key of justice? You are closer than you realize, leader, the scientist answered. Look within the body of Sentinel Prime himself. Starscream had found the code key of power exactly where it was supposed to be, molded into the substructure of the Atkins Hall of Justice. He appreciated the joke and wondered if the code key of justice was hidden away within some edifice or fixture named for power. The guards charged with protecting the code key of power did not know what they were protecting and did not fight very hard for it. The moment Starscream and his team killed the first two of them, the others fled. They were new Autobots, some of the last to come from the Well of All Sparks before the ejection of the well. Probably they had spent their entire time within the Akan itself, being too inexperienced for Optimus Prime to trust them on missions against superior Decepticon troops. And probably they had come to think of the Decepticons as nearly mythical as the names and deeds of the Primes, so that when Starscream and his force appeared from the subsurface darkness, it might as well have been the guards' nightmares come to life. Dark and Starscream found humor in this, the idea that he was a walking nightmare. When he flew, he would be a dream of falling. Now, with the code key of power in his possession, he and his air commanders were about to change the course of the war. Sentinel Prime would already have made himself known. The next stages of the plan laid themselves out neatly before Starscream. They ended with him holding both of the code keys, controlling the plasma energy chamber, and becoming the unquestioned and absolute leader of Cybertron. The rendezvous point lay just ahead. Starscream visually checked off the 6 members of the Air Command, all senior officers, all hardened veterans and loyal believers in Cybertron. Which did not necessarily mean loyal believers in Megatron's vision for the planet of their creation. This was going to be the moment, Starscream thought. The Decepticon forces had grown stale and unmotivated, their energy sapped by the endless war, even as the advent of Dark Energon had created a new subclass of Decepticon super soldier. Already Starscream mistrusted Dark Energon, though. It seemed to have effects beyond the battlefield. With strength it also gave eternal hunger for more Dark Energon. Starscream looked into the faces of those Decepticons who had tasted it, and what he saw was not belief in the Decepticon cause but desire for Dark Energon, whoever could provide it. A planet of sapped and stupefied addicts was not a planet worth fighting and dying for. Starscream resolved not to use Dark Energon again. The time had come to change the way Decepticons fought, and change, to be effective, had to begin at the top. He watched Megatron's inevitable victory over Sentinel Prime, moving quietly closer without Megatron's team noticing. Gladiators to the core, they were unable to take their eyes off a single combat. Starscream signaled his team to spread out, staking out a perimeter around them in the event that the next and final phase of his plan did not proceed exactly the way he envisioned it. A ringing impact drew Starscream's attention away from the illuminated doorway, on the other side of which was the plasma energy chamber and the key to ending this war. Sentinel Prime's arm clanked to the floor. His sword, pitted and dull, skidded and spun away into the shadows. Starscream came closer. Sentinel Prime lay mortally wounded. An age was ending. And Starscream's plan was moments away from coming to fruition. Megatron stood over the dying Sentinel Prime in triumph. Then, as Starscream entered the periphery of the room, Megatron turned to his science lackey Catalican. They exchanged words, and Starscream thought, there? Could that be true? If he could get his hands on both code keys, Then he would not have to fight Megatron. He edged closer to Sentinel Prime, seeing. Oh, yes. The searing glow of the code key of justice. Too good to be true. There it was, behind a translucent interior layer of shielding through which the code key's glow was filtered into a diffuse brilliance almost like an emanation of spark. He could possess both code keys before his final confrontation with Megatron. This was an unexpected stroke of fortune, one that surely must tilt the odds decisively in Starscream's favor. He had assumed that he would have to fight and dispose of Megatron before taking possession of the second code key. One of the rewards of good planning was that accidents tended to work in your favor. Starscream had seen it before, and he was seeing it again now. Megatron's back was turned. Starscream's team was in place. It was time to make the final, irrevocable move. The next Prime would not be Megatron. It would be Starscream. And his age would begin the moment his fingers came into contact with the code key that gleamed within the ruins of Sentinel Prime's body. He reached out. It was almost close enough to touch.
I'm glad you enjoyed that video/gameplay. Just remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. Until next time, goodbye!